So tired of getting bowed.
Hey, y'all. Yo, can I play with you guys?
Hell yeah. You know how to play sport?
No? Oh, raspberries. Warning, don't let this happen to you. Today, I've put together a guide for newer players, the top 3 characters IMO that new players should be trying out first to get a better feel for the game. These aren't necessarily all S-tier characters per se, but you can learn to play them well fairly quickly, and on top of that, they'll help beginners understand the 3 main team roles in the game. For the record, those roles are Vanguard, aka Tank, Duelist, aka DPS, and Strategist, aka Support. We got 3 heroes to go over, 1 for each role. Starting things off with the Vanguard role, why don't we go over one of my current favorite characters in the game, Doctor Strange. Strange is an awesome character with a strong kit that makes tanking very approachable. First, we'll go over his basic kit, then we'll talk about how to use him in general. Strange's primary attack is Daggers of Danak, a basic ranged projectile. The attack has travel time, so it's a good idea to go into the practice range and get a good idea for how it works and how you may want to lead targets who are moving a lot. Landing the Daggers of Danak attack will slowly build up a meter on your HUD directly under your crosshair. The meter caps off at a max of 100, and if you don't land another dagger attack on an enemy in a few seconds, the meter will slowly begin to lose charge. This meter is called Dark Magic, and as long as you have any charge built up at all, you can use it as an AoE, meaning area of effect attack, instantly damaging multiple enemies who are very close to you. Basically, any enemy within 7 meters of you will take damage when you activate it. This is Strange's Maelstrom of Madness attack, and the higher the charge you have built up, the more damage the attack will do when you activate it. This is a great way to instantly finish off weak characters in combat who have just a little bit of health left and are likely trying to get away from you. By the way, it's important to use your Maelstrom of Madness attack if your Dark Magic charge is full, because if you don't, Doc will be cursed with anti-heal, which is something you definitely don't want happening to your team's tank. Strange has a movement tool called Cloak of Levitation. Activating it will let you fly in any direction you want for only 6 seconds, and not incredibly quickly. It's really more like gently hovering as opposed to full-on dashing or flying. Now, while this may seem weak, it does have great uses. If you're about to die and you're being bullied by a melee-heavy character who doesn't have a lot of great ranged attacks, you can GTFO by simply levitating up and away while you wait to get healed up by your team support, or you can just flat out abandon the engagement altogether. You can also use the levitation ability to get some high ground real quick for a flank on an unsuspecting enemy team. Yes, it sounds weird to be flanking with a tank, but Strange's ultimate is quite good for setting up big plays, but more on that in a minute. The Pentagram of Farala is a wild ability. Hit the button 1 time to create a portal on your location, and then choose literally anywhere else on the map to drop a second portal, which you and your entire team can jump through if they wish. This is obviously a really strong ability and comes with an insanely long 173-second cooldown, aka close to 3 minutes. I generally have 3 main uses for Doctor Strange's portal. In the domination game type where both teams are fighting to capture a neutral cap point, I sometimes open up a portal to get my team to the center of the map right away. Now, that might sound dumb to a lot of people because you can't capture the middle zone until a certain amount of time has passed, but it will allow you and your team to get set up on the cap point right away. Very defensive tanks like Penny Parker love getting to the middle zone as fast as they can so they can start setting up spider webs all over the floor. 2, in the convergence game type, if you're on offense, when the other team is turtling up on the objective you're trying to capture, you could set up a sneaky portal where maybe you and a duelist character could go for a flank to try and assassinate the enemy's support characters. Or 3, if there's little to no time left on the clock and you've just respawned and you really need to get back to the objective right away to resume helping your team. There is, of course, a wide variety of other incredibly wacky things you can accomplish with Strange's portal, but things I wouldn't necessarily say are beginner-friendly tactics. That might be something I'll save for another day. Strange's bread and butter, though, is his Shield of Seraphim. Hold down the button to use it, and you pop up a giant shield in front of your character that can tank incoming damage. If you've played Overwatch at all, Strange is basically We Have Reinhardt at home. The shield has 800 health, which isn't bad at all, and if you leave the shield down for just a few seconds, it'll begin to replenish its health automatically. You can see the amount of health your shield has at any given moment by looking over here on the left of your HUD. Take note, while incoming enemy fire will damage your shield, teammates can shoot through your shield at the enemy, which is insanely good. As you can imagine, Strange is best positioned at the front of the entire team, holding his shield and protecting his ranged duelist companions seconds while they gun through his shield to deal very safe damage at the other team. If your shield breaks, just take cover for a few moments, let your shield replenish, then get right back out there and repeat. Strange has a fantastic ultimate called the Eye of Agamotto. When activated, it'll take a second or two for the attack to fully unleash, but the good news is that Strange has so much health, he can usually pull it off even in large crowds. When the attack goes off, all enemies who are within a 10-meter range of you will get completely stunned for exactly 3 seconds, unable to move or fight back at all. Short window of time? Yes, very, but you can use this time to not only temporarily halt entire teams in their tracks, but to choice target the enemy healers and beat their ass into the next dimension. By the way, you can either hit enemies in their stunned body directly, or you can also target their green disjointed souls, which will damage that player directly as well. Again, you should almost always use this ult as an opportunity to choice target important, squishy characters that can be put down easily before they're able to run or fight back. So here's how to use Strange in a nutshell. Always move with your team and always be at the head of the pack, leading the charge with your shield held up strong. Be sure to prioritize either shielding weak teammates so they can get healed by your team's healer when they can, or standing in front of ranged damage dealers on your team so they can dish out pain through your shield without needing to worry about getting hit back. When your shield breaks, tell your team that you're taking a brief moment behind cover, let your shield fully recharge, and then push back out onto the front line. When your enemies are far from you, try to go back and forth between holding up your shield and then dropping it down for some projectile attacks to build up your dark magic charges. Try to keep your enemy guessing about when you'll be shielding and when you'll be attacking. Doing that can really trip them up. If an enemy is fighting you up close, be sure to use the following combo: projectile attack, immediately followed by your basic melee attack, which looks like a golden glowing whip. The melee doesn't do a ton of damage, but with how long it takes for you to spam the projectile attack, there's literally no reason to not use the melee in between ranged attacks if you're damaging somebody up close. Remember that each melee hit builds up 10 dark magic per hit, so not only are you dealing extra chip damage, but you're powering up your finishing move as well. When the enemy you're wailing on at close range is near death, unleash your Maelstrom of Madness to quickly finish them off before they can either get away or get healed from a nearby support player. As mentioned, use portals at your discretion. A lot of teams may be very tempted to do an entire team flank, aka have your entire team jump through the portal at once onto the objective. And while that definitely can work, be fully aware that the enemy team may 100% see that coming. After all, if you can see that the enemy team has Doctor Strange on it and all of a sudden the enemy team completely pulls back out of nowhere, it's not like it's really hard to figure out what they're about to try and do. You can always pull off good flanks with half your team or with just one cracked damage dealer along with you. This can be especially devastating if you save your portal flank for when you have your ultimate ready to go. When you do intend on using your ult, look for moments when the enemy team is really grouped up, and then be sure to fully tell your team in advance that you're about to pop your ult, ideally with a 3, 2, 1 countdown. To reiterate, you want to prioritize finishing off A, weak duelist players, but more importantly, B, any support player. Luna Snow, Jeff Mantis, and especially Adam Warlock, who has the ability to revive dead allies. You get the idea. While Strange deals with ranged threats pretty well, he does have difficulty with close-range melee fighters like Magic and Black Panther. If the enemy team has one who's really styling on you, be prepared to gang up on those characters with your allies, or potentially levitate out of harm's way to make their job of killing you harder. All in all, Strange is a damn good tank with great playmaking potential and a solid starting point for anyone looking to learn how to protect their team better. But real quick, do you like food? Ah, you do, huh? I see you're a man, woman, or other of class as well. Let's talk about Factor real quick, sponsor of today's video. Factor delivers fresh, never frozen pre-made meals directly to your doorstep. All meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy cooking a whole bunch, but it's really easy to get busy and feel like you just don't have the time. But Factor meals are awesome. They eliminate the hassle of prepping, cooking, or cleanup. Simply heat and enjoy. Choose from a weekly menu of 35 options, including popular choices like Calorie Smart, Keto, Protein Plus, or Vegan and Veggie. Take the stress out of meal planning, cut down trips to the grocery store, and give yourself a break with Factor. Even after all this time since my first time trying it, I still eat Factor twice a week with the lovely Anno every week. Change your order up every week with plans from 4 to 18 meals per week, or pause or reschedule your deliveries anytime. Head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code 50fallout to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first Factor box. Again, that is code 50fallout at factor75.com to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. And again, Thank you, Factor. All right, we back. Our duelist, aka DPS character, is the Punisher, who is disgustingly good and easy to learn. And yeah, I know it seems kind of boring to choose dude with gun in a game where you can play as mutants and literal deities, but even though the Punisher's base kit is the equivalent of white bread with the crust cut off, it's actually really good overall. Why don't we go through all of his abilities, and then I'll give you a basic idea of how to use him in any given game type. The Punisher has two main ways of dealing damage. The first is his Adjudication Auto Rifle, which has 30 in the mag and has very good range, allowing you to beam targets from pretty far away. His second weapon is the Deliverance Shotgun, which has 8 in the mag and delivers just a stupid amount of damage at close range. Both of these weapons are hit scan, by the way, meaning there is no travel time on the projectiles. Translation: if you pull the trigger while the crosshair is directly over an enemy, the damage happens right away, so it's very easy to hit targets and deal damage. When in combat, you'll mainly be swapping back and forth between these two weapons whenever you want, depending on how far away the enemy is that you're trying to kill. Keep in mind that while the shotgun does have some brutal fall-off damage, using it on an enemy basically within 10 meters of you is pretty gravy, and even the beefiest of tanks will get torn to shreds by your shotty if they're not careful. Huge tip for the Punisher: when swapping back and forth between your main weapons, if you wait around 1 full second before swapping, the Punisher's weapon will literally auto-reload when stowed away. In short, if you plan on swapping weapons back and forth a lot, and you probably should be, no need to over-worry about when to reload and whatnot, because again, it'll happen automatically when you stow that weapon away. The Punisher's Vantage Connection is a grappling hook zipline that 9 times out of 10, you're going to use to get up to the high ground so you can get some sneaky, well-positioned rooftop gunman-type plays. The zipline will actually remain on the battlefield after you set it up, and you can ride it as many times as you want. The Punisher's Scourge Grenade is a vision-blocking smoke grenade that also launches him back a few feet when fired. Because firing it launches you back, this is a decent get-out-of-jail-free card if you're ever suddenly caught off guard up close by a melee-heavy damage dealer. You can also use it to just harass the enemy team and temporarily F with their line of sight while you'll still be able to see them via their player outline thanks to his passive ability, Warrior's Gaze. The Punisher's final base kit attack is called Culling Turret, and I gotta be really honest with y'all, while this absolutely does have great usage and good damage, I feel like a lot of the time it's a borderline new player trap. Hit the button and you set up a turret wherever you are, and then you hop into the turret to begin shooting. The turret has a good amount of ammo, 200 rounds, and hits respectably hard, but be warned. You're basically asking to be flanked or choice targeted by long-range players when doing this. Unless your enemies have the spatial awareness of a loaf of bread, they're going to hear and see you set the turret up and target you right away. I'm gonna say that 90% of the time, I actually find myself way more lethal with the Punisher by just using his two main guns, the auto rifle and the shotgun, just because it's harder for the enemy to fight back when you can move and strafe and shoot and take cover. That being said, if you're doing the convoy game type and you happen to be on defense, Frank's turret can be pretty nasty as the enemy team has to guide the objective along a predetermined path, allowing you to set up fairly easy down the road. The Punisher's ultimate ability is Final Judgment and is arguably one of the best ultimates in the entire game. When activated, he whips out dual machine guns and a missile launcher backpack and unleashes crazy level damage wherever you want. The missile launcher will fire automatically at any enemy nearby, but the machine guns need to be aimed and fired manually. But who cares, because you have unlimited ammo. Final Judgment will continue for 10 seconds, and if you can find the right time to activate it safely without the other team noticing where you are, you can completely rip entire teams apart in the blink of an eye. Be careful though, even though your offensive output is great, you can absolutely die when using this, and don't activate it from too far away because other teams can simply just run away from you for 10 seconds. That is the Punisher's entire kit, and again, while basic AF, it's damned easy to pick up right away and do well with if you're a new player. The vast majority of the time, you're going to be shooting enemy players at mid-range with your auto rifle, usually under the protection of your local tank or local support player, or by taking cover from a nearby structure. If you're ever pushing the objective hard, or if a player on the other team gets way too close to you, your shotgun is an absolute godsend. I can't tell you how fast certain enemies get completely demolished by just getting too close to the Punisher. I legit get excited for close quarters combat fights when using him because the shotgun really is that good. Once you start getting a better feel of when to use each weapon, your Punisher damage will be flowing like a steady stream. I don't often care about when to use my smoke grenade. Usually I use it to harass the enemy team, but if they have a lot of melee focused chargers like the Black Panther, I'll save it to give myself some extra distance if they ever dive in on me. When playing the Punisher, your priorities should always be targeting enemy support players who are hiding at the back of the enemy team with your auto rifle, or any character that flies or jumps a lot, i.e. Iron Man, Star-Lord, Spider-Man, you get the idea. Think about using your turret in defensive situations, but do not become addicted to it. You are plenty borderline more lethal without it. Always be on the lookout for sneaky ledges or rooftops that you can zipline up to before gunning down the enemy team, and be ready to whip out your shotgun if any players try to jump up on that roof to deal with you. Because you have one of the best ultimates in the entire game, be sure to communicate to your team when you have your ult ready and when you plan on using it. Using it in a tag team with another player's ults can also be a good idea. Groot's ultimate can bunch up enemy players in one location, making them easier to target. Doctor Strange's ultimate can immobilize entire teams, which again makes enemies easier to target. Luna Snow's ultimate can allow you to push in with a massive health buff, and you get the idea. At the end of the day, the Punisher is a dummy easy character to learn, and despite being boring on paper, he'll absolutely help newer players learn how to dish out very good damage right away. Finally, why don't we go over an easy to learn and strong strategist, aka support character. And because I like to avoid getting death threats from strangers on the internet, we're gonna skip over Jeff and go directly to Mantis, who I like better anyway. To former Overwatch players, Mantis functions very similar to Zenyatta. Most of the time, you're going to be a midline to backline player, dishing out buffs to teammates left and right, but you actually can kick a fair amount of ass if need be. Let's go over her base kit. Her main attack is called Life Energy Blast. It's a single shot projectile attack with travel time that you can spam pretty well, and it needs to be reloaded after 20 shots. Getting a critical hit with this attack is really preferred on Mantis because every time you land a headshot with one of these attacks, Mantis will regain a full charge of her life orb meter, which are the leaf icons visible on your HUD. But don't worry, even though landing crits is ideal, you'll still recharge those leaf icons naturally over time. What do the leaf icons mean? Good question. When hovering over an ally, you'll get two options on how to help them, inspire or heal. Heal should be pretty obvious. Hit that button and you'll activate your healing flower ability at the cost of one leaf icon. It'll auto-target your ally to give them a small chunk of 55 HP instantly, as well as giving extra health that will slowly apply 20 HP per second for a grand total of 8 seconds. Every time you do this to heal an ally, you'll also wind up healing yourself a tiny bit as well. Mantis gets 12.5 HP per second on herself for 8 seconds when consuming a life orb. Hitting the Inspire option will also apply an auto-targeted buff on your teammate, but this one applies a damage buff of plus 12% to any ally's outgoing damage for a grand total of 8 seconds. If you're worried about having to manually keep track of all those 8-second timers, don't be. You can see them on the lower right section of your HUD. The green meter indicates how much longer a teammate has their healing buff, and the blue meter indicates how much longer a teammate has their damage buff. These buffs are Mantis's bread and butter. While the best Mantis players are masters of cycling back and forth between both buffing allies and throwing out thorns to damage enemies, even a day one Mantis player who only dishes out non-stop heals on demand will be appreciated by most beginner teams. She's honestly the easiest way to be an instantly well-liked member of any team. If you start to feel more confident about the balancing act of giving buffs to your teammates and dishing out damage via your primary attack, you can take advantage of another ability, Natural Anger. When activated, the same damage buff that you can apply to allies is applied to yourself for a total of 8 seconds and at the cost of 1 life orb. Applying this buff to yourself is no joke. A Mantis player with great aim can really take squishier enemies by complete surprise with some quality team shooting. That being said, don't get too cocky and remember why you're here. Dish out damage when you can, but remember that your primary goal should always be to heal and support your team. Mantis's final base kit ability is Spore Slumber, a hilarious attack where you throw a bomb forward, and if it hits anybody, the player falls asleep for around 3.5 seconds, give or take. Spore and Slumber has splash damage, so you don't even need a direct hit in order to make someone go nighty-night. Make a mental note, though, that the enemy can wake up before 3.5 seconds if they take any damage at all. The second they take any damage, they will wake up. Therefore, your best option after putting someone to bed is either to A, GTFO if you're alone and or you're about to die and you're up against a tank character, or B, power up with your Natural Anger ability and wake them up with group team shotting with a damage buff Thorn to the face. Mantis's ult is Soul Resurgence, and it's an incredibly good defensive ultimate. When activated, all of the following things will happen for about 8 seconds. All allies within 15 meters of you will get a large chunk of health. If you're already at full health, that excess will will stack on top in the form of blue bonus health. In addition to that, you also get a wild amount of healing per second. So much, in fact, that you're borderline not able to be killed by anything that isn't a high damage enemy ultimate. If that wasn't enough, you and nearby allies all get a movement speed buff as well. The entire zone will move with you as Mantis, so as you can imagine, this ultimate will get used in one of two ways. One, push together with your entire team onto the objective in an attempt to simply overwhelm your enemy, or two, used in a defensive manner to try and offset an offensive enemy ult while the other team is pushing. Either way, Mantis's ult is really strong, so try your absolute best to not waste it. If you're trying to push onto the objective with your team, tell them you have your ult ready to go, and then give a coordinated 3, 2, 1 countdown before popping and then going. Once you have more experience using her ult, then you can think more about when to pop it defensively. Alright, here's your basic Mantis gameplay loop. First of all, try to stay near the back of the party as a beginning player where you're able to keep most of the team in your line of sight. When your teammates are weak, feed them a healing buff. When teammates are at full health, find your nearest DPS, aka duelist character, and feed them a damage buff. In a perfect world, you can tell them directly on the microphone that they've just been buffed, just in case they're fairly oblivious. After buffing the damage dealers, you can chuck out a few primary attacks of your own at the enemy team, but the second you see a teammate at low health, be sure to stop whatever it is you're doing and heal them immediately. Again, healing is always your priority. If you ever get flanked or dived on by a fast-moving damage dealer, call for help while also bombing them with Sleep Spore to stop them in their tracks. When your ult is fully charged, let your team know and give a countdown before popping it to make a coordinated push with your homies onto the objective. You may not always be the end of game MVP, but every team loves a good Mantis. They are a satisfying and strong support character who can be the easy tailwind that blows any average team to victory with consistent help. If today's video helped you in any way, be sure to give it a like and share with any teammates who might be new to the game. Really helps my channel out. Thank you very much for watching. Peace!